For the last 2 years, hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans have continued to go to work in person, risking their own health and that of their families in order to keep the rest of us and our families safe and healthy, to provide us with food, products, and services we needed so that we could work remotely and stay home to avoid exposure. These are the Minnesotans who have been on the front lines of this pandemic and who've kept our economy moving at great risk to their own health and that of their families. Because of the work that they did, our frontline workers, we were able to continue to move forward as an economy and as a state. While many of us were able to shelter in place at home, our economies kept going, and that is the reason that we have such an unprecedented surplus that we have right now. I hope to get more folks on board and make this a bipartisan effort, because I think we all can agree that we care about our frontline workers and we want to respect them and honor them in some way. These were our child care providers, making sure the children of our doctors and our nurses were able to show up and take care of people that had contracted COVID-19. And also making sure that our janitors were able to show up to our businesses that were being frequented to make sure they were clean and sanitized so that we wouldn't be exposed to COVID-19. These are also our home care workers that were showing up to make sure that people that were home and shut in before the pandemic were able to still maintain and live their lives. So when they went in and day out on a daily basis to work to make sure that Minnesota could keep moving forward, they were exposing themselves and also exposing their families to COVID-19. Now, we have called our frontline workers heroes. We've said it over and over again. We also promised that we would take care of them. We got to a point where we had $250 million pot of money that we were supposed to get out to those frontline workers. We were unable to do that. We've made promises to them. This bill will fulfill that promise. Now we have a $7.7 billion surplus. In a large part, that is due to the work of our frontline workers, because they showed up day in and day out, putting themselves at risk of being exposed to the virus, and also putting their families at risk of being exposed to the virus on their behalf when they came home each night. What we've done is we've called all of these essential workers, we've called them heroes, and we've said that several times throughout the time of this pandemic. But what we haven't done is taken the action to show them our gratitude and show them how much it really meant for them to do their work for us, to keep us moving forward.
And you know something, you don't have to call me an angel, you don't have to call us heroes. But what we would like is just a little recognition for the work that we continue to do. Because I'll tell you what, right now out there, the morale is at its lowest point. And this is exactly what we need, pass House File 2900 to boost our morale so we can keep going. Thank you.
It changes how we shop, how we do our things day to day. We pretty much become homebodies. Try not to have contact with others unless necessary. We work, we come home, we visit limited, extended family. It's very hard for all of us.
I don't want anyone to suffer like I did back in 2020 when I got sick along with hundreds of my coworkers. My story, it's not just about me. It is about the thousands of deserving essential workers who continue to put their lives on the line during the pandemic across the state, especially the workers who do not have a union to help them.
We knew that showing up for work put us at a higher risk of getting COVID. We went to work anyway, long before there was a vaccine, because we knew that our kids and our communities were counting on us. I want to thank you for acknowledging that bus drivers, custodians, food service workers, paras, and other school staff that worked through the pandemic are frontline workers and included in this bill. Thank you.
My nurse Kim helped me name my leeches that they use to get the blood flow going through my middle finger. Mackenzie braided my hair when I couldn't stand it being in my face anymore. And the whole time this was going on, the visitors, like she said, we couldn't have visitors. I didn't see my daughter for 8 days while I was in the hospital. And so I just want to thank those nurses at the ICU that made me laugh, helped me to the bathroom, and just, sat and talked with me. It was a very difficult time, and they made it much easier. So
many of us live paycheck to paycheck already, and it's a delicate balancing act that we can ill afford to maintain. Without your help, many of us will fall off. We deserve to be secure. We deserve to feel like our continuous sacrifice is appreciated and we're asking you to stand for us as we've stood up for you and the people of this great state.
Have already used all of their sick days, my daughters included, and now when they are sick or their families are sick, they need to go unpaid. When educators have to take sick days to care for themselves or a family member, that means we are still creating lesson plans, correcting assignments, answering emails, and more. And when our colleagues take a sick day, which they deserve like any other working professional, that means we sub for them, which means our own work gets delayed and our exposure to more students is increased.
In April of 2020, I was one of the first workers to become sick with COVID-19 at the plant. So many people got sick, and I remember the plant shut down, and it made national news. At that time, we really didn't know that much about the virus, and a lot of people were very scared at that plant. But those of us who could show up kept showing up for work to do the job. I like to help people, especially workers that do not have a union and they need it. That's why I'm here today speaking to you. I want all frontline essential workers to show up to their jobs to be able to be helped by you.
While the essential worker payments won't take away our stress or the pressure we've been under to completely change the way we do our jobs, it would go a long way to acknowledge the sacrifices educators have made and hopefully keep our quality employees.
I couldn't visit extended family because we were constantly exposed to COVID from the children we cared for. We had no option to work from home or avoid close contact with the children we worked with. As our communities became fatigued with masks and mandates, they dumped their illnesses on childcare workers. COVID has run rampant through our center, sending teachers into quarantine in droves. We're exhausted, we're sick, we're underpaid, and we're essential.
Lawyer said the pandemic was halfway over and COVID would be over by the end of 2021. Instead, at the end of 2021, I was infected with COVID for the second time. Healthcare workers have been fighting COVID for almost 2 years. We have done our job and continue to do so every single day. We are people who take care of you and your families, no matter the day, no matter the hour. It's past time for legislature to do their job and pass a meaningful COVID bonus for essential workers.
Our incarcerated population was locked down and watched the news, which just increased the fear level that we were then tasked with dampening and ensuring people were going to be okay when we didn't really know if they were going to be okay.
Throughout the pandemic, childcare has been the glue that kept our state functioning. In fact, it has been the backbone of our modern society, allowing parents to participate in the workforce.
I have used more personal protective equipment in the past 2 years than I have in over 40 years in nursing.
Stories are the stories of our constituents. My email box has been flooded since the beginning of this pandemic of don't forget me. Don't forget me. And it is with a heavy heart that I can't believe that it's March 9th of 2022 or February 9th of 2022, and we're still talking about something that we said we were going to do a long time ago.
Employees of the state veterans home stepped up, and we continue to come in. Our Minnesota veterans who served during World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, and Gulf Wars, they deserve the best care. They deserve a place where they can live the final chapters of their lives in peace and comfort. We continue to come in because we are compassionate about the quality of care that our veterans receive. When our facility was in quarantine, when family and friends could not visit the veterans, we were there to hold their hands, to reassure them that we will get through this pandemic and that they are not alone.
We have the $7.7 billion surplus. They were the energy, they were the passion that drove and allowed our businesses to stay open and keep running and to prosper and maintain.
Action on this bill will provide a small token of appreciation to the many, many sacrifices these workers gave to our communities.
Regardless of the situation, our number one concern is always our patients. For 2 years now, nurses have worked longer shifts and more shifts. We've risked our health, the health of our families, and to care for Minnesotans. We've gone to every length to contain the spread of this virus in our homes and our communities. Many of us, including myself, isolated from our spouses and our children, living in garages or trailers to protect our family from the spread of the virus.
It is frustrating to hear some saying that the first priority of this session should be a massive handout to big corporations. We had to fight hard just to get masks and gloves early on in this pandemic. Now we've been fighting for months to get frontline worker pay. Why is it that working people are always told to wait?
And I'm currently working at Lunds and Byerly's in Minnetonka. I'm a front-end supervisor there. I've been there since last April, and I've been in the grocery industry on and off for about a decade. I interact with hundreds of customers a day, most of whom are not wearing masks and not practicing social distancing in the store. These last few weeks, I've received 10 or 12 notifications from my store that another one of my coworkers has COVID.
At least 59,000 meatpacking workers were infected during the first year of the pandemic. That is almost 3 times the infections previously estimated.
Do our usual work, but also we were in person setting kids up for distance learning. We watched the kids of other essential workers. We were coordinating with multiple off-site teachers to assist in keeping classes running efficiently.
And I just want you to know, and I know my colleague, Representative McDonald, shares this. You are real frontline workers. You are the folks who fed us, put your lives on the line to feed us, to educate our kids, to take care of us in the hospitals, to drive buses so that folks could get where they needed to go. And we know that many in our community put their lives on the line, and thank you for representing them.
Thank all of the all the testifiers, because we don't always live these experiences they have for the last 2 years.
Since I've been at the Cub Foods at Rosemont, I first got COVID myself in November of 2020. The second time I got COVID was April of 2021. And I just recently had my third bout with COVID, was January of 2022. Both my children have had COVID twice, my daughter-in-law and my granddaughter.
You know, it's not lost on me that throughout this pandemic that we that are sitting on this call, legislators, have been safely tucked behind our computers and not had to put ourselves at risk. And I think that's very humbling, because I remember at the very height of the pandemic going to the grocery store. I'm so glad you had somebody that works at the grocery store here today, because truly they were heroes. My husband and I remember trying to bring things to them, trying to figure out ways to thank them, because $1,500, quite frankly, to my colleague, is not enough.
I just want to say that just because something isn't our lived experience doesn't mean that we don't then recognize the humanity of folks whose lived experience it is. I would hope that we all dig deep and recognize what the right thing to do is in supporting this bill. $1,500 is not a prize, it's not a reward, it's not enough, but is one step that people in this body and in the other chamber have worked really hard on to literally recognize the humanity in the workers that kept us all going, whether that was gas in your car, toilet paper in your bathroom, or food in your fridge. I urge all of us to do the right thing, support these workers, and thank you, Representative Frazier, and all of your working group members to bring this before us.
The most important thing is to really focus on the urgency of this, recognizing and honoring our frontline workers, all of our frontline workers and essential workers, and making sure that we get these resources out as quickly as possible. It has been a long wait. They do need the resources. It is not enough, but it is merely what we should be doing to honor the work that they have done for all Minnesotans. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the time.
Worked every day I could, except for the week I was coughing blood. Otherwise, I worked every day wondering if I would catch COVID from a coworker. But we had a job to do, and that was to keep America, Minnesota, and the world supplied with food. When grocery stores were out of sanitizers and toilet paper and other essentials, no grocery store ever ran out of food.
People who know better, but who are not taking every precaution they can during the pandemic. When a person goes maskless at a medical building, it's a special kind of risky. I try to be understanding, but it's hard not to feel as if people don't care that the people that empty their medical trash and deal with their bodily fluids are at a special level of risk. This is the third winter we have lived in terror of getting deathly ill. There are so many of us that never got to work for home.
I live in Plymouth. I'm an emergency center tech at Methodist Hospital, but I'm also an executive board member of my union, SEIU Healthcare Minnesota. We support HF 2900 because it provides a broad group of healthcare workers a significant bonus of up to $1,500. The COVID-19 pandemic hit my hospital like a runaway freight train. I remember one week in late February of 2020 asking a doctor if he thought COVID would come to Minnesota. He assured me it wouldn't be a big deal. Within a week, we were rushing to completely rearrange our hospital to deal with COVID.
And not one, not the company, not the landlord, nor our elected officials have ever managed to give due consideration to those of us whose jobs became 1,000 times more hazardous over the 2+ years since COVID-19 arrived in the United States. Over 1,000 members of our union caught COVID and had to miss paychecks, and sadly 5 members of our CEIU Local 26 died.
At the time, or take away the horrible memories of the fear and terror us hospital workers have lived through, but a significant bonus to all of us hospital workers would at least show us that our community appreciates the sacrifices we have made to protect them.
However, the way I read this, those grants can't go to businesses. They're going to all these other organizations.
Say that the concern about this, again, we're comparing, I believe, apples to oranges here. We're comparing a corporation or an entity that's currently being investigated for alleged fraud now to individual members. And these members are our labor force. These members are our workers. These members are the reason that we are in this position with a $7.7 billion surplus. These members, these individual workers are the reason that our corporations have done so well. Many Minnesota corporations have done so well in the midst of this pandemic. And I think it is time that we honor those members. So I would.
The salary is very low. I don't want to live like this all the time. The United States benefits from our work because we are hardworking people. Now I ask the Minnesota representatives to include agricultural workers and meat packers, childcare workers, and food packers in the distribution of the money that has been approved.
So a lot of folks lost their lives, sick. It's been complicated. And our frontline workers every single day showed up and put, in many ways, their lives on the line to help save other lives.
I mean, the difference between a donor and a person receiving the dollars here, you know, the folks we're talking about here, is power. And these folks where these dollars would be going are not necessarily wealthy people. They are people where this check could mean a lot. And
I just want to say this bill has been a long time coming, and we vitally need to show appreciation and support and honor our frontline workers. Being 1,000 workers actually applying to get this resources. So those real people that were working day in and day out, real families that will be impacted by this, real workers that we'll be honoring. So, but I appreciate your comments. I'm not trying to play around with you. I'm being honest. That is the path that I see as the author of the bill, is to move it on to the floor and get it voted out and try to get this in place as soon as possible so these workers can get these resources.
Since the beginning of the pandemic, I have received no raises for hazard pay and no time off. $150 went down the drain fast. I spent several dollars on my own masks and prepared to take unpaid time off work if I felt ill after being vaccinated.
Not every worker received any type of hazard pay or bonus pay during the time that they work during the pandemic, particularly during the time that they worked when the stay-at-home orders were in place, where they had to be in person, where they had to take the risk of being exposed to COVID-19. We've heard, in fact, we just heard literally minutes ago, we've heard workers testify to the fact that they lost money. They had to take days off of work because they had to quarantine because they were sick. They lost their sick time. And when they didn't have sick time or paid time off, they didn't get any payments. They still have bills from that. So I think it's very inaccurate to state that we paid workers already. This is a small token of appreciation, and for some it's long overdue because they're still digging themselves out of a debt because they put themselves in a position to do the right thing and work hard for all Minnesotans to make us and keep us moving forward as a state. So we have to honor that and we have to appreciate that.
Since the beginning of this pandemic, we have been hearing your stories, and we need to bring that urgency and we need to bring that fight. And so I, kind of just feel like we even brought to our, the House DFL and the House proposal last year for our omnibus bill. We had so many great things for workers. We still have 900,000 workers in our state who don't have access to a single paid day off if they're sick or a loved one sick. That's you guys. That's you guys going to frontline work every day. Like, we need to bring the urgency and the fight to this.
So we bring this bill forward to honor these frontline workers with checks of up to $1,500.